Fearless family, welcome back to another episode. This is take 2 of this episode because my battery on the camera ran out during halfway through the episode, which means it's going to be a corrupt file and it wouldn't have saved. So we're going for round 2. This episode, I wanted to talk to you guys about one of the most enjoyable years of football I have ever had, coming off the back of one of the most frustrating sort of years I'd had with the stress fractures in my back the year before and not really being able to play a full season of football and those sorts of things. So that was definitely annoying, but this year was just incredible. Like, it was my under 17s year, which means that I was an underager in the under 18s because we don't have an under 17s competition. You just go straight from under 16s to under 18s in the SNFL juniors sort of pathway. So I was an underager coming through, playing against blokes that I was 16 at the time because my birthday's not until later in the year. So I was coming up against guys that were 19 years old. So that difference at that age, going through different changes is pretty big. So there was definitely some challenges in that, but having my dad coaching that was just incredible. It was the most enjoyable year. He just come off coaching at Port Adelaide Football Club, got moved on, and then he decided to coach my team for 12 months. And the way he coaches, the way he spends time with his players, the way he communicates and is so easy to approach, but also when it was game day, I remember there was this one game and we were playing not that great and we should have been beating this team, but we just weren't clicking. At halftime, the change rooms were just real quiet, real dead, and he walked in and he was like, "God, someone died in here or what?" And it was just like a little bit of a joke, but it just lightened the mood, lightened the energy, because yes, we weren't playing that well, but at the end of the day, it's a footy game. Like, it's not that big of a deal. We ended up going out and winning that game. And I think that just comes down to the style of coaching. Our meetings were very specific. They weren't that long, but they didn't need to be because he was straight to the point. We didn't waste time. The vision that he showed, he spent time editing that to make sure the point that he was trying to get across was really clear. And I think that's why everyone was sort of on the same page and why we had such a successful year with him, because it's just the quality of communication that he had to the players was next level, and you could definitely tell. Wanted to take you through this year. I remember at the start of the year, played a couple trial games, played relatively well, and I was happy with how I was progressing there, especially coming off the previous year and sort of not performing how I wanted to. And then as soon as round 1 started, round 1, 2, and 3 for me were really quite slow. And remember at the end of round 3, we played Sturt, and I went up to one of the assistant coaches and I was like, "I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm not performing the way that I want to." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I'm just sitting around that 16 to 20 disposal mark and not really having an impact." And he's like, "So?" And I was like, "Oh," like, just his sort of mentality around, so what? Like, it is what it is. You haven't played the footy that you wanted to. There's no point sort of dwelling on it now. Like, what's done is done. You can go out there next week and just play your style of footy. And he had that bit of a background in psychology and the mental side of things he loved. And then the next week I went out and played one of the best games of footy for that year that I had played. And it just showed that taking that pressure, taking that stress away of just trying to perform and impress all the time and just go out there, have fun and not focus about it too much, the amount that impacts me is massive. Like, I always continue to put pressure, stress, like, you got to do this perfect, you got to do this, you can't miss a kick, you got to get 35 disposals and kick 3 goals and be the best player every game. Like, that's not how it has to be at all. Like, if you can take the pressure off, you can have fun, you can get around your teammates when they kick a goal and those sorts of things, that's going to bring your energy up if you're not feeling that great on the day. And I'll go through that little story later on as well that I sort of experienced with the Adelaide Crows, and they helped me through that as well, because it just weighs me down and it makes me second guess out in the footy field and those sorts of things. So if you're a young kid out there and you're sort of going through and you're not playing the way that you want to, just try to take that pressure off. Just have fun. Focus on getting around your teammates when they kick a goal. Go and help your teammate off the deck. Stop focusing on within and stop just internalizing everything, and go and just help someone else. If someone lays a really good tackle, go get around and pick them up off the deck and get around your teammates. If someone kicks a goal, go get around it. Like, bring the energy. Be the one that brings the energy to those games. But that year that we had, like, I was playing some really good footy, and one of my big goals for that year was to play up in the reserves. And I remember our senior team was having a pretty good year at the time. There weren't too many injuries, and I probably played about 8-ish games back to back that were at quite a good level. And I was like, surely I'm getting close soon to maybe getting a call up to the senior side and being able to play in the reserves. And I remember when that time did come, I was just absolutely pumped, because it had been a goal. I'd always look at the games and who was sort of playing well, and I'd write a list of sort of players that were playing in my position that I knew that I could try and take their spot almost, which was getting a little bit obsessive. But I think that just brings that bit of extra heat and intensity and makes you want it a little bit more, which, was a real big positive for me. And I was lucky enough to play the rest of that year in the reserve side. And I think I played 50-50 in under 18s and then reserves. So reserves, you're coming up against players that, well, they're men. Like, you can play against anyone. There's no age limit on it. You just nothing. Just go out there and play footy, basically. Which was huge. Like, that was just a huge accomplishment for me at 16 years old to be playing against men. Like, you could imagine what I'm going to say next if you're following along with the story, the fear that come with that of coming up against guys that were 20 kilos heavier than me, physically developed, had more experience, knew exactly what they were doing, and being a young kid, skinny kid coming through, they could just throw you around anywhere. But I was lucky enough to sort of hold my own in that respect, play some good footy, played a finals game with them, and then our team also made the grand final as well, and that was an incredible day. One of the biggest learning curves for me mentally, and the focus that I had going into that game was not where it should have been. We played against North Adelaide, and my cousin Benjamin, which I spoke about in an earlier podcast, was playing for North Adelaide as well. And they had a pretty good team, and one of my focuses was going into the game was just to beat Ben. For whatever reason, I know the reason, which I'm going to explain very soon, but what I wanted to do was just to get in a fight with him and just to win. And that come from a big insecurity when I was younger, of the kind of the fear of being lesser than him, the fear of losing to him. All I wanted to do was just to beat him in a fight. And if I did that, I would have been happy for the day. And literally, probably, I think it was maybe the first stoppage of the game. I started in the middle, I'm pretty sure. The ball spilled out, something happens, and then he come in over the top and started sort of giving it to me a little. I got caught holding the ball, and he started giving it to me a little bit. So I just grabbed him, wrestled him, pinned him down, and that was it. Like, I know the lead up to that game, that was my only focus. So when you have that as your only focus, when that happens, and it happens so early on, like, I didn't know what to do after that. Like, that was it for me. Like, that was the grand final. Like, and it just shouldn't have been the way that it was. I should have just focused on playing my game, playing my style of footy, and I played a horrible game. Absolutely stinker of a game. We ended up winning that game with a grand final, with a shot after the siren. He kicked a point from about 70 meters out, and it skidded through for a point somehow after the siren, and we ended up winning by a point. And it was an incredible feeling. I remember Dad coming up to me after the game and saying, not how you wanted it, but we'll take it, because I didn't play the way I wanted to, but we won. And the biggest lesson out of that was to just focus on you, focus on your game, because I manifested that fight, and it happened, and I won. Awesome, great, but I didn't play good football at all. And at the end of the day, that's where you want to prove yourself. Like, you don't want to be winning fights on a football oval. Like, that's just ridiculous. So my lesson to you guys out there is focus on you, focus on how you want to play. And when you're visualizing how you want to play, focus on every set play, every kick that you want to get, the style of footy that you want to play. Focus on your strengths. Don't focus on your weaknesses. Focus on your strengths and what you're really good at, because that's what's going to shine on the day. That's what's going to stand out to recruiters and people watching. Go out there and play your way. Play to your strengths. Don't focus on your weaknesses. You can focus on them at training, and the results are going to come your way. Results have come my way at different times when I've focused on the right things that I should have been focusing on, not when I'm focusing on having a little wrestle with my cousin just because of an insecurity when I was younger, and that fear of not being good enough, the fear of failure, the fear of being lesser than. So that's my experience. That's my teaching. That's my message to you guys. Hopefully you got something out of that, and stay fearless.